Da, 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 da. Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday. Happy hump day. Another live Women That Shred. And my special guest today is, and here we go, Nicole Mattiello.
Oh, beautiful. Bellissima. Very good.
Yes. Okay. I know. It's always, I feel like everybody, all of my guests have had like difficult last
It's so hard. I feel like I'm one of those people, and I know this is a common complaint, right? You meet somebody and you're so focused on like shaking hands and like making eye contact. And then it's hard to remember exactly things like how did they pronounce their name? What was their name? Those types of things.
Came out last week where we were like, how do you remember people's names? Because I am the worst.
It's challenging, right? Like I really have to try to like make some kind of association, I think. You know what I mean? And that tends to help me. But it's funny.
Christina's out in LA, West Side.
Nice. Wish I was there, not here in this.
I know. Yeah, you're in Pittsburgh. You just said that it was snowing today.
Yeah, it's pretty gross out. The problem with Pittsburgh is we literally get like weather, like how everyone says Seattle, it rains all the time, right? Yes. It's cloudy, rainy, and they're known for that. Well, ironically enough, we actually have more cloudy, rainy days than Seattle.
Interesting.
So there's a fun fact.
Okay, I was going to say fun fact. Now, yeah, no, I've been there a couple of times and I actually really liked it. Like it surprised me, the city.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Town and very young. There's a really young crowd there, so it's perfect for you.
Yeah, well, I'm aging more than you might imagine, but yeah, it's a nice environment downtown. I wish if we had different weather, it'd be like the perfect place for me. But I would much rather be down south somewhere where it's 90 every day than.
No, I get that. All right, so today is Wednesday, which meant yesterday was Women's International Day. Yes. Did you celebrate? Did you do anything special for it?
I did actually. You know what? It's pretty cool. So one of the individuals that worked with, her name is Allie. She works with me here at Certified. And so she came over. We had some things to get ready for. I mentioned to you, we're hosting that women's networking event with TMC. So we had to like put together our invitations and things. So she came over with cupcakes and champagne. So when the day was over, we toasted and we had a nice little time together. So that was fun.
We should celebrate each other and ourselves too, right? I mean, that's why I have my T-shirt that Marsha Davies gifted me, for Empower. Have you attended an Empower luncheon at all or an event?
It is absolutely on my radar for this coming MBA. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you have to. They're amazing. And, so for me, I was like, it'll be perfect to do Empower. And their Dal just hopped in just to say hi.
You're gone.
With International Women's Day and also being women's, is Women's
History Month.
Month. Now, and I wanted to do that topic, and obviously, being that it's all good now. Pop in surprise. But, obviously with Women That Shred, I have the opportunity every week to showcase women in the industry. And we talk about kind of, women in mortgage and so forth. But I wanted to actually kind of talk about the women in our own families and how, maybe they've shaped us or how we've changed and evolved. If we haven't, like I would be interested, especially because you're Italian. Yes. And my mom's background is Mexican. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up bicultural. So for me, having that Mexican culture, it's very interesting because women in Mexico tend, it's a little bit different culturally than here in the States. So I'm curious for you as well, like with your mom and your grandmother.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about them.
We're such a mixed bag. Like would be the easiest.
I love that though.
I know, it's great. So we have actually on my mom's side of the family, they're primarily Italian, Irish, I would say. And then my dad's side of the family was primarily German. My grandma was actually 100% German. And then my grandfather was Hungarian and Czechoslovakian. So a little bit of a mix. I would say, from the cultural influence, it's funny because the Italian side definitely came out the strongest. And everything from personality probably to the types of foods we eat and the things that we do. I can remember even as a kid, and I think it's probably a lot of cultures have that kind of tradition, right? But like we would have these huge family parties like Christmas Eve.
Mhm.
And like traditionally, of course, it would have been Feast of the Seven Fishes, but apparently we didn't have that much. People didn't like fish that much. So it would just be, pasta everywhere and like, beef tenderloin and that kind of thing. And I'm not kidding when I say like my extended family, there's like, if you get us all together, there's like 50 of us.
Oh, wow.
And on my mom's side, huge family. And so it all kind of come together. And, I can remember my aunts being in the kitchen and things like that. And that was it was really like the center of the home. We used to go to my one aunt's house, especially when I was a kid. And it was actually kind of a small house, like in retrospect. And they had flipped their house around. So like where the kitchen should have been would have only been like maybe an 8x10 space. But because everything happened in her kitchen, she made the entire basement her kitchen.
Oh, wow.
Kitchen, like family table and everything. And that's just like what we did. And we hung out with all our, third cousins and stuff like that. But we treated each other like we were first cousins and you wouldn't know the difference. And so it was kind of neat, that environment just kind of, obviously it's the older you get, everyone has bigger and bigger families. And before you know it, there's not a house big enough to have us all in it. So some of that's kind of gone away, but man, it's funny how that really influences your makeup and how you look at your family members and how you enjoy each other's company,
Yeah.
Cool.
Now, have you found that you have certain characteristics from some of the women in your family? Because
yes.
I'm sitting here, same thing. It's crazy just now at my age, starting to realize how much I have kind of inherited from these women especially on actually both sides. Unfortunately, on my dad's side of the family, there's really no family there. I don't have any cousins or anything. I didn't know my grandparents. So unfortunately, when I say like my family's Mexican, it's because truly that's the only family that I know. So for me, that's been a huge influence. But like, for instance, I was showing you before, this painting behind me is my great aunt, Amelia. And I'm an artist as well. So it's like, now I know where it comes from, right? Just my great aunt. And then my grandmother, I didn't realize until pretty recently that she made most of her money through real estate. And here I'm in the mortgage industry.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. Where connection that is.
Property management. And then she still has properties. Like she passed away, but that's what we inherited. We inherited property from Mexico. Like that was her legacy.
Yeah.
And she never married. She was widowed at age 37 with 4 kids under the age of 5 in Mexico. And she never remarried. She built her wealth independently, everything. And so now I'm starting to see kind of those characteristics come from her as well. And it's interesting. So I'm wondering if you're kind of seeing that as well.
It's so interesting you say that. So my grandma, she actually just celebrated her 92nd birthday about 2 weeks ago. And so my mom's mom, she growing up, my grandfather, he actually was very sick. He had heart problems, like pretty significant ones. So he spent a lot of time in and out of the hospital. And he really wasn't often the one working. My grandma was working back in the, early 50s and things like that with 2 little girls. And it was, she was the primary breadwinner. She had the stress of making sure her family was well taken care of and that she had a secure job and that, she had to be a career woman in an era where that was not typical. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it was challenging. And I think so much, she's feisty little thing too. I call her my pocket gam because she's just tiny and I'm very tall. I'm 5'9". She comes up to here on me. She's really tiny, but she's just this little ball of fire. Even at 92, she would put you in your place like that. Yeah. Right. She's very self-directed. And so is my mom. She has that same trait about her. She's one, I don't know. There's something about my mom that if she tells you to do something, everybody's just like, okay. Don't mess with you don't want to mess with Colleen. She's coming after you. So it's but in a good way, she has that strong personality. And so she, I think she really influenced both my sister and I growing up from a career standpoint. She really enjoyed working. She loved it. She felt really committed to it. She was actually, she was a medical librarian. So she worked in our hospital here downtown Pittsburgh. And her responsibility was really to help the doctors identify things with the children's hospital when something was a challenge. And she was just so committed to making sure that those kids got the answers they needed and their families got the answers they needed. And, you know, sometimes a little bit at the expense of coming home to her own kids, right? But she saw that there was this greater good out there, and she was willing to put in the hard work to do it. And, you know, I think that, I don't know, that's just been really influential in me because, you know, it's hard being a working mom, and, you know, even just being a woman in a work environment, it's always challenging. So I think I've been really blessed because, you know, I had great examples to look up to show me like, hey, that, you know, I can still care about my family, and I can go out there and do my job and put in my best effort every day and be happy and proud of that. So I think it's kind of cool, right?
Yeah. And I love that Josh, the celebrity, we have a celebrity.
We got to pop in. Hey, Josh.
Yeah, you know, but it was also something that because when I was thinking about this episode, I realized too. So here I, you know, spoke about how my grandmother, widowed, young age, she, you know, sent my mom and her siblings to like private schools. Like she was all about, they moved to Europe just so they could study different cultures. They knew different languages. My mom went to parochial school when she was 16 in the States. I mean, all of that. Then it's kind of crazy because my mom, complete opposite. Wow. So then my mom, I don't think she's ever had a job in her life. Like, and I don't think it was one of those things where she met my dad. She came over here. She's been a stay-at-home mom, even though they're divorced now. She doesn't work. Like she's kind of now uses, you know, like invests in my grandmother's, you know, properties and so forth. But so for her, you know, it was completely different life. And so when I saw that, I didn't understand that I had kind of these attributes from women in my family that I didn't know about, because I would look at my mom and I'm like, well, my mom's a stay-at-home mom, so I guess when I get married, I should be a stay-at-home mom. All of those things. Then when I got divorced and realized that I needed to start working, I had this like drive and ambition, and, you know, and then here I'm 11 years divorced, still, you know, single, like making my own money. And I realized, because I was like, well, my mom wasn't like that. So where did I get it from? And now I realized that I have these generations of women in the family that were doing that. My mom, for whatever reason, she just, it was different for her. Right. So it's funny that when my mom sees me now, she looks at me in this kind of like, Raquel, like, oh my gosh, like, look at how amazing you are. And like, I'm so proud of you. And you're doing this on your own. And so it's kind of interesting that it doesn't necessarily, you know, pass down every generation. So, and my mom, so that's why I was like curious with you too, because.
Yeah. And you know what actually is interesting about that? So with my mom having worked so many hours, I mean, there were a lot of days where for her, it was big time at work. She'd be, you know, there 10 hours or more, 12 hours frequently. And so my grandma, had been a stay-at-home mom on the other side, my dad's mom. And, so she had been a stay-at-home mom. And so really when my mom started working and we were a little bit older, I think I was 3 when my mom went back to work, but my grandma was there with me every day. So I had kind of that dichotomy too, right? And and it's different. And I can remember, like, as you're getting towards the time where you're making big life decisions in high school, like, am I going to go to college? What am I going to do? And thinking like, well, what do I want that path to look like? And then it changes on you anyway. But you know, you have those comparisons and you're trying to figure out, well, what would make me happy? You know what I mean? And sometimes I think we don't know per se, and we kind of have to find our way through it. But it's interesting because you really can look at that. And like, I think my grandma was such a nurturer. And I wish I took a little more of her qualities, because sometimes I can be a little, you know, me, we'll just say, and kind of driven. And so she was a little bit more, you know, apt to be the comforter and things like that. And it was, you know, that influenced me too profoundly. And it is interesting because I think back then so much of like the, you know, the 50s and 60s and that time, people may have gone one way or they went a totally different way. And that kind of has come up still through the ages. It hasn't necessarily changed, except maybe the proportions, you know? So.
Yes, it's interesting too, because I think it was last week someone did a post about how we are so quick to say working moms, but we don't ever say dads.
Isn't that the truth?
So clearly, there's still things, and our society that we kind of, equate like, okay, working mom, that means that we still believe that mom should be at home raising their kids, which is, I feel very blessed that I was able to do that. That was my decision.
Right.
I wanted to be a young mother. I wanted to be at home with them. But then as they, were getting older and, I went through my divorce, that's when I realized like, okay, I also want to be responsible for the actions. And, I wanted the divorce. And so it was like, all right, I have to do what I can. And that was great. So it was like so I evolved, right? And that's the thing. I think that's what's really important is we're always learning, we're always changing, and we're, realizing that maybe at 46, like now is my time to be someone that I wasn't at 26. And that's okay. I think that's another thing too, is that I think we're seeing in this world that, yes, ageism still exists, especially with women, but I'm finding that so many incredible women that are older that are like trailblazers for us right now, kind of be like, hey, I mean, I was at a damn power lunch and I got to go in San Diego several weeks ago, and Rita Moreno was the keynote. She was the featured guest, and she's 90 years old. And I don't know if you know who Rita is, because you are young.
Yes, I got to listen to her speak on it. It was on a Zoom call, and it was like, oh my gosh, I was so impressed. I was total fangirled her. I was like, oh.
Yes, West Side Story, and she has a memoir, and I was just like hashtag like, age goals on that one, because you just realize like 90 years old, that doesn't mean that your life is over. If anything, she just wrote a book, and you could tell that she's kind of like starting a whole new stage in her life. And it's such an inspiration. And I think it's great that we're seeing more women do that. And I love that Christina said that her grandparents moved to the US from Japan when I was 5 to take care of me while my parents worked. Yeah, I mean, that's a generational thing too, where like you said, your grandmother was taking care of you while your mom, was at work. And I feel like that's something that is still kind of occurring these days. I feel that there's still a lot of grandmothers out there.
There are.
I feel like I would be that grandma. Like,
I know I want to be that grandma. That's my whole retirement plan. But we all have to be more warm first, and then I will be that grandma. But like it, because I don't know. It's important, and I think it's so nice to have your family close. You know what I mean? Like to me, I'm a very family oriented person. And I'll be honest. So I started working from home back in 2014 when that was like not the norm, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, it was because up to that point, I traveled quite a bit at the company I'd been with in the industry. Traveled quite a bit. Honestly, too much by the time you have your second baby, and you're like, I'm out and about a little too much. So ended up taking a role that was different than what I've been doing. And then you're at home, and it's almost like my career was on life support. Like it was like, where am I ever going to end up finding myself back in the opportunities I had? Like things shifted, So you're at home, you've got 2 little kids, you're working from home. And yet I can't tell you how many times somebody said to me, well, you're a stay-at-home mom. No, like, no. I mean,
being a mom and working, like I just
like, oh man, you end up, I think a lot of us probably experienced that in the last couple of years, right? Like the shift of working from home and having your families around and balancing that, and, not feeling like you're failing everybody simultaneously, because you can't give everybody 100%, obviously, because you're doing this and you're doing that. And how do I make sure I'm giving the right amount to everybody who needs me? And I think that's an interesting challenge that more people experienced, right? It may have been more traditionally something that I think a lot of times in my experience, at least, I knew a lot of women that worked from home, and then the kids would be at home too. That was kind of still semi-typical. But with the change in the pandemic, I really feel like it kind of opened people's eyes to what that must have been like. And like having, your kid pop in while you're on a Zoom and trying to shush them because it's like, go do something, please.
I've been on so many calls and I hear a crying baby in the background or someone screaming. And, it makes me sad that whoever, the parent is, it's in the call, they feel badly. And it's like, no, I mean, that's life. Like it's okay. You don't need to apologize,
Yeah. I'm so glad. I think one of the good things that came out of the pandemic, right, is this change in mentality about how we view our roles as individuals, within our families, within our companies, within, just whether you're taking care of your kids or if you have something to do, and kind of the normal amount of flexibility and still being a fully functional adult to, do your work and get your things done. And I just think like, I feel so blessed to have found myself where I'm at now at Certified, because that really has worked out well. And I think one of the changes that I've seen, I've become much more reflective about a lot of this, working for a woman-owned business and seeing kind of the challenges that she went through to be where she is today. It's just very impactful. You know what I mean? And then you start thinking back on your own timeline and your own history and how did I get here and who helped me along the way?
Yeah.
And like, how am I helping the next generation? You know what I mean? That's one of the things that I think I really think about now. And I always have. I mean, I've kind of been, one of my great career highlights to me is I've always been in the role where I was able to help develop others and give them opportunities. And, that it's very empowering, I think, when you can help bring somebody else in, show them the way, like kind of, get the little birdie out of the nest, and then they go and take off and they soar, and you're like, man, I'm so proud of you, So it's definitely something I find myself thinking about more. I don't know, as I get older, into my 40s a little ways. And so it's like, you start to consider, how did I get here over the course of my career, and what helped me or what hindered me, and how do we fix that when we see those gaps, I guess? And I'm saying this at the same time that I don't know the answer, but when we do see those gaps, those inequities, how do we help balance it out so that everybody has a reasonable playing field, right? And a pretty equal opportunity. So, but I think some of that has positively changed, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just the fact that someone like Josh and, Shred Media was like, hey, we want to focus on the women in this industry. We want you to host it. That in itself says a lot, right? That
Awesome.
he sees the value in that. And Dal, what advice do you have for women just starting their career? That's a good question.
Yes.
Oh
my gosh, I feel like I could give you a book here, but I'll try to keep it as simple as I can. I would say ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to assert yourself. Have confidence in what you know, and where you don't know, say help. And chances are, I think that's actually one of my favorite things about this industry. If you don't know, you can ask. And
people, yes, and there's so many people that are willing to give you that answer, to give you an answer.
So many. Yeah. And I think that to me is just really cool, because a lot of other industries, people found themselves here very much so on purpose. A lot of us kind of fell into it from, one field or another. Me too. And so you end up, from that perspective, knowing what you felt like I've always been very mindful to not forget how I felt when I just started out in this space, and literally not knowing anything, and having to go into, I ran the training department at one point at my past company. And so I would have to go into these training presentations with customers where I literally knew what was on the slide deck. And it was like, okay, so if they ask me anything else, what do I do? But you get good at explaining, well, let me get back to you, and digging in and having those people that'll sit down with you and they'll whiteboard it, right? Let me show you, I'm going to explain this to you from beginning to end until you have finished asking your questions. And I think that's a really neat thing that we have going for us in this industry that a lot of other spaces don't. My sister happens to be a pharmacist, and I would have to imagine that, you have to know everything about it once you're out, right? You're probably you don't really have somebody else to rely on real time to ask questions to. And I think we're very lucky in this space that we can constantly grow. We can constantly ask questions. There's no limit to what we can learn. You go to some of these shows too, the content is unreal. If you look at the sessions and things and what's being discussed and what we can take away from it, I think it's pretty neat to have that kind of environment. So my advice is ask all the questions you want, and really take those opportunities when they're presented to you, because I think that's really helped me a lot to just pick people's brains over the years and be a good listener.
Yeah, a good listener. Yeah, be a good listener. That's key. And, that's kind of along the lines with my advice is that, I was always very kind of blessed to whatever company or industry or wherever I was, there was always someone there that kind of could identify my strengths right? Like in that, and when you know that there's someone there that's like your cheerleader and identifies those things and is telling you like, hey, you're really good at this, or maybe you should do, like, listen, pay attention, because clearly they see something in you that you don't necessarily see. And that's essentially how I ended up where I am right now, doing branding and marketing. I never saw that in me. It was managers and bosses being like, hey, you're really good on social media. You have a great presence. You're really good. You know, all of this, like, we want, like, so they basically, I've been very lucky where people have created positions for me.
Yeah. Yes.
And like every job I've had in this industry, it wasn't like, oh, they're looking for a so-and-so, I'm going to apply for that. It was more of me meeting someone at an event. They really liked what I had to say or my personality. And they're like, we need you to work with us. We're going to create something around your strengths.
Yes.
And I think there's something amazing about that, especially when you're starting out your career. A lot of people just have no clue. So hopefully when you know, find that there is that person or people that are starting to see something in you, like take advantage of that and ask questions with them, like, why do you see that as a strength? Or oh my gosh, like, do I really stink at this? And they might be like, no, you don't. You think you do, but you really don't. Or maybe I kind of see you in this position, not that position. So that for me was really key, I believe. For sure.
That makes so much sense to me. And so my background, I actually, here's a funny thing. My degree is in music education, specifically percussion.
Art history.
I knew I liked you. I get that. I feel like us fine arts people we're a little bit of a different breed, right? Yes. So like I didn't go to school for marketing, you know, and yet I find myself here. And you just, I don't know, that you have that person who goes, I think they're kind of creative. I think they come up with some unique ideas, and they're excited, they're passionate. They're not going to like sit back and wait for something to happen. They're going to make it happen, and they're going to, you know, take advantage of the opportunities presented to them. And I totally get that. I can remember when I first started in this industry, the guy that was my manager many moons ago, he said, I hired you for your personality. And I was like, thank you. He was like, you can't teach that. He was like, whatever else you don't know, we can teach you, but I can't teach you to have a personality. I can't tell you how to interact with others, how to be open-minded, those are those qualities that you have.
Yeah, those social skills, those soft skills, which oddly enough, when you're young, you don't believe that that's important. Like, you don't understand that emotional intelligence is very important. And I knew I had emotional intelligence. I knew I was intuitive. I knew all of those things. But in my mind, just from what I saw around me and from people talking, that wasn't important if you're trying to get into the corporate world. Because I was a stay-at-home mom at age 24 to 35. So I had no career before I got divorced. So I literally started from the bottom, you know, like started from the bottom. Now we're here. Like, seriously. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh, I got to, you know, be really smart and, you know, and what I'm doing, like book wise, not realizing that being smart doesn't mean just book smart. It's being savvy. It's you know, being creative, being all of those things. And once again, I was very blessed to have people from the start nurture that in me, because I feel like too many young professionals come in and they don't get nurtured, or they don't have people telling them that that's what they see in them. And so for the longest time, they're just doing what they think they're supposed to be doing. It just kind of the grind and the hustle, and, you know, I got to have all these certifications, and then they forget that your personality,
I know,
and your emotional intelligence, sometimes really actually precedes all the other stuff.
It does. And I think in our industry, that's probably more true than a lot of other places, right? Because like it's such a relationship focused environment. And I think a lot of times, like you know, if you haven't had the opportunity to be out, or you haven't gotten a chance to know people face to face, you might feel like you can't reach out, or you can't, like I said, ask questions. And more often than not, if you just raise your hand and say, I'm here, I'd like to learn, somebody will be like, okay. And they will nurture you, they will mentor you, they'll go out of their way. To just kind of adopt you, like, come on in, you're ours now. we're gonna take you with us on this journey. And I think that's a really great opportunity that a lot of people don't necessarily expect, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think I've been blessed with the same thing, and I would stand to wager that a lot of people in our industry have, right? That they've kind of had those mentors. They don't necessarily even come from the same side of the business, right? Like there are ladies I can point to that work for totally different organizations that from mine that have very much just made me come in. We're taking you with us, you know, and it's great. I think we're really lucky to have that kind of support. And and it's so important, I think, for women to support each other in that way and help each other get up and find those opportunities where they can thrive.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean, I'm speaking of, supporting those women, for instance, Suha, who is
yes,
huge.
I just saw her.
He introduced me to you, and she's been introducing me to, several women that she, would love to see on the show. And I love that, right? Like I told her, I'm like, bring it on. Like, these women, like, let's do this. The more women we have on the show from all over, the better. So I love, obviously I don't want people thinking that just because I'm the host of the show means that I'm going to be picky about who I have on there, that it's, no, not at all. Like if you are tuning in and you're in the industry and you want to be on here, like please reach out to me, because I might not necessarily know you personally. So please, like I want to showcase all of the women. Like how cool would that be if I could get like
that's so awesome. I mean, this is how we are getting to know each other
in the industry.
Right? Yeah. And like, this is how we're getting to know each other, right? Like I haven't met you in person. I fangirled you for a while on LinkedIn, but like, I haven't ever gotten a chance to just be like, oh, hi, Raquel. I haven't seen you anywhere, So this is the first opportunity we're having to talk, and look how comfortable and easy it is.
I know, I was going to say, like, as I'm talking to you, I'm like, okay, she's in Pittsburgh. She's not too far. I'm in the Mid-Atlantic region. I'm up there every now and then. Like, I'm going to definitely reach out to you next time I'm up there so we can go ahead and get together. But that's what's so awesome is, before this show, you and I only had the email exchange of like, hey, what do you want to talk about? Can I have your headshot?
Yep, bingo.
Everybody literally saw this relationship unfold in 31 minutes.
This is real time. This is a real time meeting of the minds.
This is real time. And time is up. So I'm going to go ahead and, by the way, you're both connected to NAMBA. Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
Hey, how about that?
All right. Well, NAMBA. Yeah, I'm actually going to a NAMBA event in Richmond, Virginia, I think. So we'll have to talk about NAMBA.
Yeah,
okay. Sure. But I want to thank everyone. Next week, we're putting the show on a pause because I will be at a conference, and that day, Wednesday, President Obama is going to be a featured speaker. I'm going to the NARB National Conference. I'm like super excited. So clearly, like, I want to have the opportunity to hear him speak. And I know that like Dal and Josh, they're going to be at a conference too. So we just decided to put next week on hold. So we have the following week. I think I have a guest. I got to confirm with her. But yeah, we'll see all of you. I think it's the 23rd is 2 Wednesdays from now. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it is. Yes. It is. You're right.
But I will miss this next week. I like Wednesday has been like my favorite day of the week now. But I just want to thank everyone for hopping in. Christina, always thank you. There was a guy, Trent, that hopped in, and obviously Josh, and then Suha. So thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, guys. It was so nice to talk with you. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it so much, Raquel.
Absolutely. This was awesome.
Yes, it was.